Chapter 1860 Two Conquering Cities. The sudden betrayal of Zhang Yi and others caught King Arthur and others off guard. To be honest, the other two on the battlefield were in a state of confusion. For a moment, they had no idea which side Zhang Yi was on. But once the battle begins, it is like a train that cannot be stopped. The soldiers of both sides were already tangled up in a fight with the aliens, and neither of them could stop. King Arthur tried hard to suppress the discomfort in his chest. He had already suffered internal injuries. That attack contained Zhang Yi's full strength. It's not just the power of the void, but also the might of a nuclear bomb exploding at close range. King Arthur, who could only exert 10,000 points of supernatural power index, was unable to completely block this kind of attack. He glared at Zhang Yi. Why? Chaos. Don't you even have the minimum dignity of a strong man? You took our things and promised to help us. Zhang Yi nodded. You are right. I promised you that I would help you defeat them. But I didn't promise you that I would not attack you. Saladin, King Arthur, and others were all confused after hearing this. But soon, someone reacted. That is the angry Ichigo. You are planning to wipe us out. When the others heard this, they also suddenly realized. The premise of their cooperation with Zhang Yi was that Zhang Yi had given up the ultimate victory. And in the current situation, Zhang Yi has promised too, so there is only one possibility. He has no intention of giving up the fight for victory. The battlefield became chaotic. Zhang Yi's men attacked from the inside out, causing King Arthur and his men to be attacked from both sides. Although Saladin and others knew that Zhang Yi's actions betrayed them and that he would definitely fight against them in the future, they were happy to eliminate the most powerful King Arthur team first, as they had others to help them. Don't be so arrogant, Chaos. King Arthur roared. Under such circumstances, what can you use to compete with us for victory? As soon as these words were spoken, a huge stream of light shot up into the sky from their team's main formation and flew directly towards the location of Zhang Yi and his city. All of you have gone out in force, leaving your base empty. In this situation, you still dream of turning the tables? That's ridiculous. Even if you defeat us, you'll be killed by them. Why do you have such a dream? King Arthur said to Zhang Yi with a sneer. As long as they destroy Zhang Yi's city, they will be teleported out because of mission failure. By then, they will still have an absolute advantage. Yeah, Zhang Yi said lightly. That streak of light was a super missile deployed by Ichigo. It would be easy to flatten a city without anyone protecting it. A few seconds later, with a loud bang in the desert, Zhang Yi's city was completely destroyed. Zhang Yi, Lu Karen, Yang Xinxin, Brian and their dog also disappeared on the spot. King Arthur covered his chest with his hands. He felt very uncomfortable in his chest, and a mouthful of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The damage caused by Zhang Yi's attack was greater than he had imagined. Now that we have dealt with the guy who overestimated his own capabilities, it's time for the final battle between us. King Arthur wiped the corner of his mouth, raised the holy sword in his hand high, and swept it towards the enemy in front of him. Alexei frowned. He always felt that something was wrong. Is Zhang Yi a very stupid person? Obviously not. But what's the point of him doing this? They had clearly given up their city, which was equivalent to completely giving up hope of winning. But in the end, why did they have to put on such a show? He had met Zhang Yi several times and knew that he was an extremely cautious person who preferred to plan before taking action. So now, they watched Zhang Yi's city being destroyed, while they and their dog disappeared on the battlefield. It seemed reasonable, but Alexei always felt that something was wrong. But now, there is no time for him to think. Because once the wheel of war starts rolling, everyone will be dragged into it involuntarily, and a moment of hesitation will result in the opponent's sword being placed on their neck. He had no choice but to fight. Silver lightning flashed from his eyes. He roared, transformed into the angry tyrant again, and rushed forward with a battle axe in hand. But just as he was about to collide with Odin, when the distance between them was less than 100 meters, he suddenly had a strange feeling. It was as if the speed of the entire space had slowed down. This feeling was not that his body was actually slowing down, but that his brain consciousness reacted too quickly when his sixth sense detected a special situation. Something is wrong. 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 Something terrible is going to happen. The strong sense of crisis in his heart made Alexei stop his forward momentum on the spot, and then he crossed his arms in front of him to protect himself. Very suddenly, an astonishing energy erupted from under the battlefield. The sound disappeared at this moment, and the light in everyone's eyes turned into pure white. They were temporarily blinded. A moment later, as if a prehistoric monster of unimaginable size emerged from under the earth, an incomparably huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The mushroom cloud was spreading and spreading, and continued to spread. Within a radius of hundreds of miles, it was all shrouded in thick explosion clouds. A huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky, as high as 50 or 60,000 meters. Death of Love. This was the name that every person at the scene thought of in their minds at the last moment. They were extremely stunned, because they could not imagine that such large strategic-level weapons would be brought here. But thinking of Zhang Yi, many people figured out many things in their minds like a revolving lantern at the last moment. Yang Xinxin said that this was a war, and on the battlefield, unlike outside, victory or defeat was not determined solely by the strength of the aliens. War can be won by any means necessary. Therefore, from the very beginning, their team was not the Shu kingdom among the kingdoms, but the Wei kingdom. They are the most powerful ones. Because the army moves, food and grass must go first. Others at most carried some weapons and equipment with them, but Zhang Yi carried an entire huge storage warehouse. Among them were the 5 Death of Love that Fremons had promised to give him when he asked him to rescue Morana. No one will ever really know how many cards Zhang Yi has up his sleeve. In addition, on the first day they entered the battlefield, they designed Liang Yu to die in battle on purpose, but Zhang Yi kept silent and did not break up with Morana and others, which gave people the illusion that they were weak. It was not until this moment that they finally understood what a terrifying man Hun Dun from Huashu Kingdom was. Zhang Yi used up all 5 Death of Love at once without hesitation. Otherwise, he would worry that the equivalent would not be enough to completely clear the entire battlefield. The violent explosion affected an area of more than 100 kilometers in radius. The mushroom cloud soared into the sky to a height of over 60,000 meters. In the core area, sand and rocks over 10 kilometers in area were directly vitrified, forming a circle of terrifying melted layer.
And what about Zhang Yi?
He took Yang Xinxin and others and escaped into the void. Completely isolated from the outside world, they will not be harmed by external explosions for about a minute. Even though the energy was so powerful that it was unimaginable, they still appeared from the void a minute later. Even wearing combat uniform and exoskeleton armor, he could still feel the burning heat. It was like throwing a person into magma, and the whole world seemed to be hit by the sun. The earth is melting and flowing like sticky river water. The entire canyon was flattened, revealing a huge deep valley filled with bright red sand and rock solution, which would form a huge glass canyon after cooling. 5 Death Gods of Love. Blow all the soldiers to death. I think, under this situation, no one can survive, right? Brian wiped the sweat off his head with his paw, horrified by the scene. In its heart, it was extremely glad that it had chosen to team up with Zhang Yi, otherwise it would be the one being roasted. Don't be happy too soon. Zhang Yi reminded calmly. Don't forget who are the people who can appear on this battlefield. Everyone here is a top-notch expert from the outside world. Otherwise, Zhang Yi wouldn't have gone to so much trouble to ask Yang Xinxin to make a plan and wipe them out in one fell swoop. Sure enough, after the aftermath of the explosion dissipated, Zhang Yi and Lu Karen checked the battlefield and found that someone really survived. On the entire battlefield, out of 9 people, only 1 was killed on the spot. Zhang Yi couldn't help but sigh at the sense of crisis of these strong men. Even though the Death of Love that he had arranged in advance was detonated instantly, they tried their best to prepare for defense in the less than 1 second before the energy exploded. King Arthur, who had already been hit by Zhang Yi in the battle, was eliminated. The Norse god King Odin was eliminated, and Priest and Saladin were also eliminated. Saladin's death was the most helpless. He transformed into a ghost and was originally a huge cloud wandering in the sky. As a result, the impact of the explosion of the god of death of love went straight up to the sky for more than 6 kilometers from the ground and defeated him abruptly. There were 5 people still alive at the scene. The Junjing Church, the red-robed priest Olib, the king of the Kangma tribe Ichigal, the sun god Galmai Khan, the strange man Changluan from the Qinling Dragon Kingdom, and Alexei, who has an amazing physique like a monster. Relying on their extraordinary abilities, these 5 people actually survived the explosion of the god of love. This is not surprising. As long as you are not in the center of the explosion, there is indeed a possibility of survival. The battlefield was too large, and Zhang Yi could only kill as many people as possible, but it was difficult to cover them all within the core range of the explosion. However, even if they survived, their situation was not optimistic. Blood was gushing out of Alexei's orifices. The impact of the explosion and the damage caused by radiation to the body were not so pleasant. Gao Yuchan of the Rat clan moved very quickly. Although his position was close to the center of the explosion, he escaped a long distance at the fastest speed, and then used a piece of hemp rope to set up a circular barrier under his feet to block part of the power of the explosion. Each of the 5 people suffered some degree of injury. It was impossible for them to remain unscathed under such conditions. They looked at Zhang Yi with unimaginable light flashing in their eyes, including confusion, awe, and naked murderous intent. Chaos, what a plan! I didn't expect you to bring in the god of death of love. Olib sighed sincerely. He had not participated in the Battle of Tianhai City, so, in his impression, the method of using the god of death of love is still limited to launching it with long-range ballistic missiles. If you had seen it with his own eyes, who could believe that someone would place the god of death of love under his feet and then detonate it? Apart from Zhang Yi, who possesses bug-level abilities, I'm afraid no one else can do it. Yichigal covered his left arm. Part of his body was made of metal structure. Although I managed to survive the explosion just now. However, that horrible temperature still caused his body to show signs of melting, and now the whole body seemed to be a little distorted. Why? Even though I have destroyed your city, you are not kicked out of this world. Although Yichigal was angry, as a king, he accepted defeat. I just want to lose in such a muddled way. Zhang Yi looked at the 5 enemies in front of him and smiled slightly. In fact, the reason is very simple. The city you saw is simply fake. At this moment, Zhang Yi successfully saw surprise on everyone's face. Fake. The real city has already been taken into my alien space by me. So I can leave the fake city behind and make you think that I have really given up on this battle. Zhang Yi's tone was calm, because now there was no need to hide anything. He said that these people could probably guess it. Yitujier and others fell silent. In the initial stage of coming to this world, they also tried to take down the statue and carry it with them to avoid being attacked. However, the statue and the city were built as one, and the rules do not allow the statue to be removed. And moving the entire city? That's meaningless. No matter where the city is moved, the target is still obvious. So, from the very beginning, we never considered that this kind of operation could be possible. Now, let me end this battle, Zhang Yi said to us. At this time, Olib looked at Alexei and said in a deep voice, now both sides have suffered heavy casualties. If we still want to fight for the final victory, the only way is to join forces. Alexei's eyes were deep as he conveyed Olib's meaning to Morana and others. At this time, Morana and Pokong, who were still guarding the city, also learned the news here. Both of them were shocked by Yang Xinshin's strategy and Zhang Yi's trump card. This guy actually hid so deeply. Damn it. Although they were tricked, we have to admire the strength of Zhang Yi and others. It's just that I was played like a monkey for so many times. It's impossible to say that I'm angry. Well then, let's join forces and kill them first. Can you hold on? Olib wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said in a deep voice, Fortunately, Chaos and his men are not good at attacking. It is not easy to quickly take down the 5 of us. Come here quickly, the 7 of us still have a good chance of winning if we join forces. Before he could finish his words, Zhang Yi's gun was already pointed at him. Star cannon. A black beam of light passed through the space between the two of them and headed straight for Olib. A raging fire burned in Olib's eyes, and he raised his hand to hold up the flaming holy sword. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, use the pure holy fire to cleanse the filth of the world. Show the mortals your true power and burn all things with the flames. The holy fire burned fiercely and a firestorm swept in, swallowing up all the black void power. However, soon, a black line emerged from the firestorm and hit Olib's chest hard. The silver cross burst out with brilliant light and turned into a holy shield of light that blocked in front of him. Oliba held the cross in his hand and raised it firmly to block Zhang Yi's attack. But after this fight, his face looked noticeably uglier. The effects of the Death of Love's explosion have not disappeared, and his physical condition is worse than expected.
Kill.
Yichigel roared and raised the red sword in his hand. The red energy crystals on his arm burst out with terrifying power and released a death ray at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi dared not underestimate this attack and quickly used Sinluo Wanxiang to block it. The 5 people found that the situation was just as Olib said. Even though Zhang Yi and the other 3 were in perfect condition, it was extremely difficult to defeat them quickly. After all, even if the 5 of them were seriously injured, they could still burst out with a high level of combat power in a short period of time. We just need to wait for Pokong and Mirana's reinforcements to arrive. When the time comes, we can turn defeat into victory. Zhang Yi's eyes were low, and he used Sinluo Wanxiang to protect the 4 people and began to attack the 5 people. Brian placed his hands on the ground, and soon the ground began to shake violently. A huge rock was dug out from the ground and rose into the sky. Falling stars. The huge rock smashed forward like a meteor. Alexei roared and stomped his feet on the ground, making loud bang, bang, bang noises. The rocks above my head really seemed like stars, falling down on my head. He suddenly jumped up from the ground. The power of thunder condensed on the giant axe in his right hand, and then he chopped at the rock fiercely. Crack. The giant axe hit the rock, a cracking sound was heard, and the power of silver thunder burst out, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the huge rock in an instant. Then, with a loud bang, the rock shattered into countless pieces and flew in all directions. Okay, let's go ahead like this. It's not that easy for us to win, Olib said with a deep look in his eyes. Chaos. He looked at Zhang Yi. The god of death of love cannot become your foundation, and you will eventually pay the price for your ambition. Zhang Yi glanced at the 5 people in front of him, his voice tinged with emotion. Background? Did you get something wrong? He gently raised his right hand. His hand was very soft and could easily grab the basketball with one hand. His fingers were long and slender, with distinct joints. This hand in front gently opened a secondary door. I never thought that I could kill all of you with the death of love. And when it comes to foundation, it is just one of them for me. The biggest foundation is here. The secondary gate slowly opened. This was an extremely huge secondary gate. Then, in front of everyone, a huge black fortress slowly emerged from the void. It is huge and heavy, like a black rock that has been washed by waves on the coast for tens of millions of years. Boom. There was a muffled sound, and then it landed on the glassy ground beneath its feet, and its mechanical arms began to take root in the ground. When everyone looked at that thing, they couldn't help but look sideways. Even Brian stared at it with a pair of dog eyes. Hey bro, why are you out here? Even bringing your own house with you? He pointed at the huge dark castle and said, That's right, the thing Zhang Yi took out was the Tianhai fortress that he had carefully built over the past few years. Zhang Yi said calmly, Out of habit, I want to be at ease with my base camp after leaving Tianhai City. So, I brought it with me. But you're wrong about one thing. It's only a house. It's a fortress, a last fortress. Zhang Yi is a person who easily feels insecure, so he has very high requirements for his residence. Over the past few years, every time Liu Karen improved his technology, he would apply it to the above. The entire fortress is surrounded by metal materials and is fused with the material barrier stone. That is an ancient technology obtained from the country of Nash, which can absorb energy shocks. Even when facing attacks from aliens, it can be resisted very well. Of course, it is not invincible. So far, he has only been able to withstand the attacks of the newly stepped Black Chariot level inhumans. But here, facing opponents whose combat power is suppressed, it is impossible to defeat. Absolute defense. The outer layer of the fortress is a spherical protective layer made of barrier stone, metal, and alloy materials. And among these, there is a defensive force field powered by quartz materials, the technology of which comes from the mechanical demon god of the Songcheon clan. The interior is the living area and the combat area. Liu Karen drove the snow owl directly to the top floor of the fortress, then began to connect to the intelligent system inside the fortress and began to enter a state of combat readiness. Activate combat mode. City defense sniper activated. Tianhai cannon activated. In an instant, the entire Tianhai fortress unfolded in front of everyone like a terrifying monster. That's right, expand. The upper defense force field was activated, and a city defense sniper extended from the head. In the 8 directions of the fortress, a Tianhai cannon was placed respectively. After Zhang Yi and others entered Tianhai fortress, they sat in the seats of the city defense sniper and began to lock the target. This is a war. From now on, it will be your battle of attack and my battle of pursuit. The city defense sniper and Tianhai cannon quickly stored energy and began to aim at the enemy and prepare to fire. What happened before their eyes had already put Yichigel and the others in a state of intense anxiety. Join forces to destroy his fortress.